Our projection already 6 wins for the Democrats. We could project that Elizabeth Warren, the incumbent Democrat, she will be reelected to the United States Senate for another 6 years. Sherrod Brown in Ohio, reelected, the incumbent Democrat. In Connecticut, Chris Murphy, the incumbent Democrat, reelected. In Maryland, Ben Cardin, the incumbent Democrat, reelected. In Delaware, Tom Carper, the Democrat incumbent, reelected. And Sheldon Whitehouse in Rhode Island, reelected. Too early to call in 3 states. Let's take a look at those. Too early to call in Florida still. Bill Nelson and Rick Scott, they're in a tight matchup right there. In Missouri, Claire McCaskill, Josh Hawley, polls just closed there. Too early to call in Missouri. Similarly, in Tennessee, Phil Bredesen, the former governor, Representative Marsha Blackburn, too early to call. Too early to call in those 3 states. Let's take a look at the where we still are not able to make projections. As we mentioned, Florida, Maine, Mississippi, the Mississippi special Senate election as well, Missouri, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Tennessee. No projection. The balance of power, where things stand in the U.S. Senate right now, 31 Democrats are guaranteed. They will be in the Senate, 42 Republicans, but 27 seats in the Senate remain outstanding right now. We're watching all 27 of those seats. Remember, Democrats must pick up 2 Republican seats in order to make sure that they are the majority without losing any of their own seats. Danny, you're eyeing some of these races that are still very close.
That's right. They are all very close. Still early, but we want to check back in Indiana, because earlier it was closer, further apart than it is now. It's gotten closer. Mike Braun, the Republican, is still very far ahead at 55.3%. The incumbent Democrat, Joe Donnelly, is trailing at 40.8%. But again, we are still waiting for a lot of the Democratic areas to come in, and that is according to people who I'm speaking to in Joe Donnelly's camp. A little more than a third of the vote in, but it is closing just a little bit. Republicans hope to take that, just as they do a lot of other Trump states. Now in Florida, Bill Nelson, the incumbent Democrat, is leading. Votes are coming in very fast. He's at 51.4%. The Republican Rick Scott is behind, 48.6%, rather, 70% of the vote in. I want to get straight to Nia, who has a projection in the governor's races.
That's right, Dana. 2 projections in governor's races. In Pennsylvania, CNN projects that the winner of this race, Tom Wolf, who of course is the incumbent governor, he hangs on, wins re-election, defeating Scott Wagner, the Republican, in this race. We'll go to Massachusetts. CNN projects that the winner there is Charlie Baker, also the incumbent there, the Republican, defeating Jay Gonzalez for a 2nd term. So 2 holds, 1 for Democrats and 1 for Republicans. And here is the big board. These are the races we just can't make any projections in at this point. Alabama, Connecticut, Florida, Illinois, Maine, Maryland, New Hampshire, Oklahoma, and Rhode Island, and also Tennessee. No projections at this point. It's just too early. And in Florida, let's go to this race we've been watching all night. Andrew Gillum, the Democrat, at this point, it's getting a little tighter with 82% reporting at this point. He's ahead at this point by about 23,000 votes. But look at that. It's about a 0.4% split. In Ohio, we'll go up to the Midwest here. Richard Cordray, the Democrat at this point, over Mike DeWine at this point for about 55,000 votes, 26% reporting. Remember, Ohio, a state that Donald Trump won by about 9 points, the Democrat doing well there. In Georgia, another race we're watching really closely, Brian Kemp, the Republican, over Stacey Abrams at this point by about 92,000 votes. 8% in. We're going to hand you over to Wolf and Jake.
All right. Thanks, Nia, very much. Let's take a look at the big picture of the House of Representatives right now. We got some numbers. We'll put them up on the screen. I think 16 Democrats right now are leading in Republican districts. There you see it right now. It's 16 Democrats leading in Republican districts and races that are still too early to call. Remember, the magic number now has gone down to 22. Democrats must pick up 22 Republican seats, not lose any of their own. They'll get to the magic number of 218, become the majority.
Yeah, and this is good news if you're a Democrat. You're watching this and you're thinking they're leading in 16. They've already picked up 1. It's early yet. It is only 8 o'clock, a little bit after 8 o'clock. We still have the rest of the country. We've only really hit the East Coast. There's still polls open in some places. But Democrats look like they're on track to have a good night. One thing that I would like to point out of the races that we just called, Pennsylvania and Ohio were purple states or blue states, even in the case of Pennsylvania, that Trump won. And yet, both Governor Wolf of Pennsylvania and Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio won re-election pretty easily, even though there were a lot of hopes Republicans would be able to pick them up and pick up the Senate seat in Ohio.
Look at Florida right now. Look at how tight it's getting in the Florida gubernatorial contest and the Florida Senate contest right now. It's getting very tight.
Well, because a lot of the polls are coming in from the western part of the state, I would assume.
Take a look at this. Andrew Gillum has 49.6%. Ron DeSantis, the Republican, 49.2%. Only 23,500 votes ahead for Andrew Gillum. Look at the Senate right now. In the Senate contest, Bill Nelson is ahead by about 44,000 votes over Rick Scott, the governor, 50.3%, 49.7%. But it is tightening in the past few minutes. It's tightened pretty dramatically.
You know, what's interesting about this is that the conventional wisdom is that Andrew Gillum, because he was a more exciting candidate, at least according to the pundits, was helping Nelson and pulling Nelson across the finish line, although we obviously don't know who's going to get across the finish line first. But right now, Nelson actually has more votes than Gillum. So perhaps that conventional wisdom, like so much conventional wisdom, was completely wrong.
We got a key race alert coming up right now.
Wolf, look at what we are seeing in Texas, the red state of Texas. The Democrat, Beto O'Rourke, right now as we are starting to get votes in, is ahead, significantly ahead, 58.5%. Ted Cruz, the incumbent Republican, 49.9%. This, of course, has been a huge marquee race. Millions, tens of millions of dollars have poured in for Beto O'Rourke in the hope that he can turn this red state blue. It is early, but it is not something we ever see going into Texas on a Senate race. The Democrat is ahead.